Before we get to that, Ariel, are you a good cook? And if you are, what is your specialty?
I wouldn't say I'm a good cook. I would say I do have a specialty, though. I'm really good at mac and cheese and this really good penne alla vodka dish with grilled chicken.
Ooh. That actually sounds good.
That sounds a lot better than my Carl's Jr. patty on a couple pieces of bread. So that's a win for you, Ariel.
I will admit that there is nothing like just making pasta with marinara sauce out of the can. Like, there is nothing like that kind of meal. Unfortunately, it's Passover right now. In the Jewish religion, you can't have any kind of bread products or pasta products until Saturday night. Of course, I already have reservations for an Italian meal Saturday night, though.
Oh my gosh. Thoughts and prayers with you. I couldn't live without carbs. But I will say, at least we have some NBA playoff action going on to distract you from the no-carb lifestyle, because that sucks. What doesn't suck, the series between the Grizzlies and the Timberwolves. Series tied 1-1. Grizzlies 1.5-point favorites. How do you see Game 3 playing out?
I like the Grizzlies here. Taking them on the money line, it's a short number at -125. Memphis is 17-9 straight up and against the spread off a loss. Only one 7 seed has beaten a 2 seed since changing from 5 to 7 games. The Grizzlies are one of the best rebounding teams in the league. When they lost that game to Minnesota, they were out-rebounded, which is very rare for Memphis. I'm going to go take Memphis on the money line and say that they're not as bad as they looked in that game that they lost to Minnesota. They're a very good team. They score well. They shoot well. I mean, they also were on that huge winning streak, even without their best scorer, Ja Morant. They're deep. I just like them, their defense, their rebounding, much better than Minnesota, who has been bottom 10 in that category against point guards.
When you look at this game, I know you love props. Any player props you're looking at?
I am. I'm looking at a few unders for, first off, I'm looking at the under for Steven Adams. Any number you get, bet the under. This is a player that just put up 0 points, 0 rebounds, and 1 assist in game 2. The way to contrast with that, if you want to bet overs, is bet the power forward Brandon Clark over. I like his points over, or even his points plus rebounds over. There's not going to be a number probably until very, very late. I'm sure they may not even post the Steven Adams number because of so much uncertainty that may even roll over to Clark. However, that's the way that I would play this game in the props market. The Grizzlies need to keep Adams off the court. He's just been struggling. He's not helping them at all. Brandon Clark put up 13 points in back-to-back games. He had a 20-point game against Minnesota earlier this season. I really like Clark to be that extra offensive piece coming off the bench for Memphis, with Steven Adams not really contributing much.
Yeah, and heading out west to Mavericks Jazz, that series also tied 1 game apiece. Jazz 6.5-point favorites. Luka Doncic questionable and listed as doubtful for the last 2 games. What are you looking at in this game?
I'm looking at Luka Doncic's backup, Jalen Brunson. Now, I know Jalen Brunson does start. It's just that he's not always the starting point guard per se if Luka's in. When I've looked at the trends with the Utah Jazz, I realized that although they have one of the best centers in Rudy Gobert, he does a really good job in defending against other big men. He doesn't do a great job in rebounds allowed to point guards. In all the games that the Mavericks faced the Jazz this year, one of the point guards, either Luka Doncic or Luka and Jalen Brunson, went over 5.5 rebounds. Brunson just went over this number in the last matchup between these two. He went over 5.5. I'm going to go with the over on 4.5 or 5.5 rebounds on Jalen Brunson, as long as Luka Doncic is not on the floor.
We're talking to the prop queen, Ariel Epstein, sports betting analyst for Yahoo Sports. You can also watch her on Pregame Spread on MLB Network weekdays at 5 o'clock in the East with Matt Vasgersian. All right, Ariel, I know you're doing some work on the network today. What are you looking at on the MLB slate?
First, I'm looking at a few strikeout props. The one that stands out the most so far is the Seattle Mariners left-hander Marco Gonzalez under 4.5 strikeouts. Texas has the second lowest strikeout rate in baseball at 18.5%. It actually drops to just under 17%, which is the lowest against left-handed pitchers. Gonzalez is a lefty. I'm going to go with his under 4.5 strikeouts. I'm also looking at the under for San Francisco Giants right-hander Anthony DeSclafani's under 4.5 strikeouts. The Mets have the 6th lowest K rate in baseball and 4th lowest against righties. It drops from 20% down to 18.7%. It is a day game, though. I do have to look at DeSclafani's day numbers as well. The juice is on the under, which makes me happy, even though sometimes people look for plus money. That leads me to telling you why I texted Chelsa about the Yankees starter, Jordan Montgomery, over 4.5 strikeouts. The number seemed really low when going up against the Detroit team that averages about a 25% K rate, which is the sixth highest in baseball overall. That number goes up to 28%, which is the fifth highest against lefties, and Montgomery's a lefty. The problem is that I looked at last year's daytime games. Montgomery was terrible. He had an ERA above a 5. He was 0-4 in 12 starts. I'm a little too nervous to back somebody who did not pitch well in the day. So I'm going to stay away probably from Montgomery. It makes sense as to why that number is 4.5 and the under is juice. So right now I'm just looking at the Giants starter, Anthony DeSclafani, under 4.5. And I'm looking at the Seattle Mariners lefty, Marco Gonzalez, under 4.5.
Ariel, you've been betting on K-props for quite a while now. I know a lot of people just have started jumping on some of these props, but in the time that you've bet on Strikeout Props, what have you learned? And I think sometimes the best teaching method is the ones that you lose. And sometimes you learn from those losses and you say, hey, this is what went wrong. This was the sabotage factor. What is some baseline advice you would give for people just starting out when trying to bet on K-props?
It's going to go back and forth when betting on K-props. Granted, in the long run, you should end up profitable because streaks in K-props, at least for me, have been better than the losing streaks. You've got to just keep the course. Sometimes I try too hard to change the way that I handicap. It ends up putting me in this downward spiral. I know that these K-props started for me at 13-5 on the season. In the last 2 days, that's gotten up to 13-10. Yes, there's some regression there. I'm not going to change what I was doing, though, because there's going to be another streak coming up. We're in the third way through the rotations, which means that these lineups and these hitters are starting to get more familiar at the plate. The pitchers are going to start to progress, too. They just were getting ahead of the batters, which is normal in those first couple of times through the rotation because lineups haven't seen these pitchers before. It's going to all bounce back eventually. Just keep your course. Don't change the way that you cap. Don't get too nervous, and definitely do not chase.
Oh, that's such good advice. We've all done that, and particularly don't change the process when you know it works for you, and historically it's been good because everyone is going to have those spots. Ariel, before we let you go, the NFL draft is just a week away. So are you going to bet on the draft at all? And if so, how do you research picks? Because this is a different type of betting.
It is a different type of betting. I remember doing this in 2020 because it was like the biggest event ever. It felt like the Super Bowl. I was so into the draft. It was the best draft betting I ever had because there was nothing else to handicap. I will be capping this because Yahoo actually asked us to cap it. So I have no choice. The thing is, New York doesn't let you bet on the draft. I had to go to the New Jersey BetMGM, which was so frustrating. I said to my boss, hey, I can't see the lines. Except sending me a link to the New Jersey MGM book. I'm going to have to look through them. I haven't sifted through it yet. Basically what I did, though, in 2020, I made an Excel spreadsheet that was super helpful. I listed all the teams out in order. I tried hard not to try to predict trades because any kind of trades in the draft are just so unpredictable. I really just tried to look at where these players were going when it came to falling on the draft board. That helps you with your draft positions. I like the draft positions the best, where you could pick over or under a certain draft position that a player is selected at. If you could go and get those kinds of markets, that's better to me than trying to guess an exact market. This way you give yourself a lot of leeway. And I was able to find just so many different spots on the board where I was like, oh, this person is probably going in the first round, not early second round, or this person is probably going early second round, not in the first. I would try to get a lot of those draft position bets for sure.
She's a sports betting analyst for Yahoo Sports. You can also see her fine work on MLB Network's pregame spread, weekdays, 5 o'clock in the East with Matt Vasgersian. It is Ariel Epstein on the Roman guest line. Ariel, great to hear from you.
Thanks so much. Good luck tonight.